second session of the day. I am thrilled to welcome Sarah Dennehy, who is presenting Mindfulness in the Classroom. Sarah is a licensed behavior specialist with a master's degree in special education from Lehigh University and is a certified mindfulness and yoga teacher for children and adults. She is the director of programs and a lead teacher for Shanthi Project, a nonprofit in the Lehigh Valley that provides trauma-informed in-class mindfulness and yoga to area schools and community organizations. She also teaches mindfulness and yoga classes at the Northampton County Juvenile Justice Center. Sarah has nearly 20 years of experience in the autism field and has been a behavior specialist consultant for over 10 years. She holds certifications from Mindful Schools in Mindfulness Fundamentals and Mindful Educator Essentials, and is certified in trauma-informed mindfulness and yoga. Sarah, take it away.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. So I am going to share my screen right away and bring up my presentation. So bear with me. There we go. All right, so that's, thank you for that introduction. I was going to talk a little bit about myself, but now I don't have to. So welcome. I'll just move on to the next slide and tell you what we're going to be talking about today. And if anyone, I know we're going to do a Q&A at the end, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. I only see like one or two of you, so I won't be able to see you if you're waving or anything like that. So today what we're going to cover is basically what is mindfulness, a little mindfulness 101. We're going to briefly go over trauma and talk about stress and kind of the science of mindfulness, and then we'll be talking about mindfulness in the classroom. And then in between that, we'll be doing a few like brief practices. So just quick question, and if you wouldn't mind answering in the chat, I'm not sure how many are in this room, but how many of you currently have some type of mindfulness or yoga practice or both, or just some type of experience with mindfulness? I think I'm able to see the chat box if you type in. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Oh, SEL in your classes, great, Julie. Okay, excellent. Not really. Recreational, okay. All right. Okay, thanks everyone. All right, let's move into our Mindfulness 101. I'm going to show you a video. I think this explains mindfulness. It's very cute and succinct explanation of mindfulness. Now, the narrator in this is Dan Harris. He is an anchor, is or was an anchor for ABC News. And he actually had a panic attack while he was on air one night. And then after that, he was, kind of exploring what happened to me, how can I prevent this from happening again? And he discovered mindfulness. And since then, it's been a while since that happened, but since then he's become an author of a few books about mindfulness. He has an app called 10% Happier, and I believe that's the name of his first book as well. And he also has a podcast. So let's go ahead and watch that video.
Sarah, could you turn the volume up on that? I think it's a little low for everyone.
Sure. I'll pause it and turn up the volume. All right, the volume is all the way up, so I'm going to turn up the volume on my computer and hopefully that helps. Any better?
I think it's just coming through on your computer. Do you have that checkbox clicked off again?
There we go. I didn't realize that I have to do it every single time.
I know, pain in the butt. You keep pressing it.
All right, it is on now. Sorry, everybody. Let me just rewind a little. So
I'm pissed.
And we'll start again.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. So I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
I love that explanation. So what he's saying is mindfulness is actually the opposite of just being on autopilot. Mindfulness means present moment awareness. So some of the benefits of mindfulness, it increases focus, self-esteem, definitely academic performance, helps with classroom behaviors, helps us regulate much better, and decreases anxiety and stress. I just want to give a quick explanation of the difference between mindfulness and meditation, because he did mention meditation in that video. So you can think of mindfulness as a way of life, a way of spending your day, and meditation as more of something that you do to be mindful. So meditation is something, a meditation practice is something you can have as part of your mindfulness practice. You don't have to meditate to be mindful though. Meditation, although there's so many benefits to it, is not for everybody. And it can be frustrating. So it can be a part of your mindfulness practice, but doesn't have to be. So mindfulness is not a quick fix. It doesn't solve all our problems. It's not about emptying the mind. That's actually impossible. We have tens of thousands of thoughts running through our heads every day, but mindfulness can kind of help slow that down and help us better respond to what's happening around us and even, you know, inside our heads, as opposed to just automatically reacting. Mindfulness is not being happy all the time, unfortunately. You're still going to have, you know, it's present moment awareness. You're going to have happy times. You're going to have, you know, not so happy times. And it's just really an awareness of everything that's happening. And it doesn't mean that you have control over your thoughts and emotions. Again, all those things are still going to happen to you. It's just you have a better way of responding. So this is actually our first mini practice, and this is just a grounding practice. So if you'd like to join me, I invite you to sit up a little bit taller. I'm assuming most of us are seated, so just sit up a little bit taller. And then bring both feet to the floor if you can. And then just kind of press both feet into the floor and just notice the ground beneath you, the floor beneath you. Just kind of notice your shoulders, relieve any tension in your shoulders, let them relax. Maybe your hands are resting on your lap. And if you like, just let your eyes close, or maybe soften your gaze so you're not staring at the screen. Maybe your eyes are turned down. And now just notice that feeling of support that the ground provides, that your chair provides. And then I invite you to take 3 slow, mindful breaths, perhaps breathing in through the nose, and then breathing out through your nose or mouth. And then another inhale. And exhale. And then one more slow breath on your own. All right, so just kind of a way to just reset. You can do this as many times as you feel like you need to during the day. All right, so now we're going to shift gears. Maybe that was that grounding practice was a little relaxing. We're going to shift gears and talk about trauma and stress. So before we begin, how many of you, if you wouldn't mind, again, using the chat box real fast, how many of you are in trauma-informed schools or have had some type of trauma training? Just curious. Okay, some in school, private practice. Okay, all right. Sounds like a few of you have had some. Okay. All right, so just quickly, there's a difference between acute trauma and kind of trauma we're going to talk about today. Acute trauma is some type of wound or something that needs emergent care. So if you get into a car accident and you cut yourself or have a broken limb and you need to go to the emergency room, that's an acute trauma. The kind of trauma we're going to talk about is more of the emotional effects. So, maybe after that car accident, the trauma that you're going through related to that. So a traumatic event is an incident that causes physical, emotional, spiritual, or psychological harm. The person experiencing the distressing event may feel threatened, anxious, or frightened as a result. But not all people experience trauma or experience a traumatic event the same way. So what's traumatic for me may not be traumatic for you, even if we were in the exact same, car accident or event. And that has really nothing to do with who you are, your personality, or anything like that. So it's helpful to have an understanding of trauma if you're, when you're creating a mindful classroom. So let's talk about the autonomic nervous system and kind of how that relates to trauma and stress. The autonomic nervous system is divided into two parts. We've got the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is also known as fight or flight. So that's preparing you or helping you through a life-threatening event. you go into survival mode. So if you're on a hike and suddenly you're being stalked by a cougar, I don't know how many of you saw a few weeks ago, there was a man who was actually being stalked by a cougar. Your body is going to react, and it's going to prepare you to survive that event. So you're going to go into fight or flight mode. So all it's concerned about is that you are able to fight or run as fast as you can. And anything that you don't need, so your autonomic nervous system, that's in charge of all the systems in your body that happen automatically, like breathing and heart rate and stuff like that. But there are certain things that you're not going to need when you are when you're experiencing this this life-threatening event. So you don't need to digest. Your logical thinking brain kind of goes offline at this moment. You don't need to be thinking through. You just need to be reacting. But the brain doesn't know the difference between something like a cougar attack, an impending cougar attack, and something stressful, like let's say like a job interview. So your body is going to react the same way if there is a life-threatening event, or if there's just an event that's super stressful. And then the parasympathetic nervous system, that's kind of the opposite. That's also known as rest or digest. And that's when, after your event, your traumatic or life-threatening event is over, then the parasympathetic nervous system is going to kick in, and your systems are going to start working again. You're digesting again, you're thinking more logically, you're calming down. And in this system, we have something called the vagus nerve, and that's actually part of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's a very long nerve, runs all through your body, from your brain all the way down to your gut. And the vagus nerve is what activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And we can intentionally activate the vagus nerve. And we can do that by belly breathing, with movement, exercise, meditation, socializing, singing, humming, even laughing. All those things will activate the vagus nerve, get that rest or digest system coming back. So best case scenario is you experience a stressful event. So let's say you're stuck in traffic, okay? So you're stuck in traffic, and then you start to get nervous and stressed out because you're going to be late, and and then traffic starts moving, and you take a few breaths, your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, and now it's returned you to homeostasis, which is just that balanced feeling, that balanced state before the traumatic event occurred. Now, we need our system to work through a life-threatening event. Okay, we don't need to pause and activate our vagus nerve at that point. We need to get through that, and then the parasympathetic nervous system, will do its thing afterward. But stress is a little bit different. So let's say you're here. This is your homeostasis, or your balanced state. And then you're driving and you hit traffic. So you're kind of up here now, and you're stressed out, and then traffic starts moving, and your parasympathetic nervous system starts to kind of kick in. But then there you hear a political ad on the radio. So your stress level goes up again, and then maybe starts to come down a little bit. And then someone mentions COVID, and now you're up here. And starts to come down a little bit, but you're never actually getting back to that homeostasis. So you're kind of lingering, your stress level is lingering up here, and that's what we call chronic stress. And we know that's bad. That leads to disease, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, other mental health issues. So where we need that sympathetic nervous system for life-threatening events, and a little bit of stress is good, but right now in our climate, there's way too much stress. So we can take control of those non-life-threatening events. And really the key is awareness. It's that awareness that mindfulness brings us. Okay, I'm getting stressed out, I'm in traffic, and the radio is delivering more bad news. And I know that, my chest feels tight, and, my heart's starting to beat faster. So I have that awareness that I'm having this response. And then I can kind of complete that cycle. I can say, okay, I'm going to call my friend. She always makes me laugh. Or, I'm going to take 5 belly breaths and just notice how I feel. And let me move to the next slide. We can actually get stuck, though, in that fight or flight, or even further down in what we call freeze. And not just, we can get stuck there not just for a few hours, but for weeks and months and years. And that kind of, that becomes sort of our normal state. And when we, you can kind of see different behaviors. So you might notice different behaviors, students in your classroom, and you can kind of get a sense of maybe what they're going through. Like if they're in that chronic fight state, that might look like rage, anger, frustration, agitation, irritability. If they're kind of in flight mode, that might look like panic, fear, worry, concern, anxiety. And then that freeze response is really kind of that shutdown mode. So you might notice, head down, flat affect, preferring to be alone, kind of like putting themselves in the corner or maybe under a table. So you can start to kind of get an idea from these common behaviors. Now, of course, not all these behaviors mean that the student is going through trauma or is experiencing chronic stress, but you might notice patterns. You might notice this is happening more often than not. So trauma-informed practices, a trauma-informed classroom feels safe. We give choices, we use invitatory language, give lots of breaks, encourage checking in, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We're open to feelings and talking about feelings. There's no shaming. Lots of movement breaks. We know that exercise activates that vagus nerve and gets us feeling calmer. So also understanding some triggers, but knowing that we're not going to be able to know everyone's triggers, but understanding that they might be going through some type of trigger response. Knowing how we could respond, and knowing that breathing, we talk a lot about breathing in mindfulness and meditation. It's not for everybody. It might actually send someone, might be very calming for some and send others into panic mode. So really getting to know your students and kind of what they need. So safety, easy communication, consistency from day to day, just sort of setting up this environment of positivity, presence, and predictability. All right, now that we're done talking about stress and trauma, let's do a brief 5 senses check-in. So if you'd like to join in, I invite you to find your mindful body again, and that was our sort of our grounding body. So sitting up a little taller, shoulders relaxed, feet on the floor, hands resting on your lap. And we're really just going to go through all 5 senses, starting with sight. So just take a look around. You can just keep your answers in your head, taking a look around. Just notice 5 things that you see. Just name 5 objects that you see. And then moving to our sense of touch, maybe touching 4 things that are right around you. Maybe thinking of a word to describe each thing. My desk is smooth, my shirt is soft, etc. then moving to 3 things that you can hear, maybe in the room that you're in or outside the room or even outside of your house. 3 different sounds that you hear. And then we'll move to smell. It gets a little more difficult, but notice if you can find 2 distinct smells. And then lastly, just noticing 1 thing you can taste. Now this might just be the taste of your mouth, but just noticing that sensation. So there's a few different ways that you can do this 5 senses check-in. You don't have to use all 5 senses. You can just use 1, maybe look around the room, name 10 objects, or maybe you look for all the green things in the room. Or you can do a 3-2-1, 3 things that you can see, 2 things you can hear, 1 thing that you can touch. So there's different ways to do this. And I find that this is a fantastic way to, if you're in an anxious state, to come out of that. So when we're anxious, we're usually stuck in the future. We're thinking about, we're worried about something. And then just getting in touch with our senses brings us right into the present. And you can do it as much as you need to get through whatever you're dealing with. All right, so we're going to talk about mindfulness in the classroom, which is why we're here. And it's broken down into presence and practice. So practices. So presence is really how you embody and model mindfulness. And then we'll also talk about some practices that you can do in your classroom. So at Shanthi Project, we have a research team. We've partnered with Muhlenberg College, and our research has shown that in the classrooms where we've brought mindfulness in, where we've taught mindfulness, teachers find they have more teaching minutes in each day, less dealing with behaviors, fewer behavioral referrals, fewer times that we need to get kids regulated, just a better overall classroom environment, less stress for teachers, and an increase in resilience for teachers and students. Okay, so this is our hierarchy of learning pyramid, similar to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. To get to the point where we're learning optimally, that we're motivated to learn, we're ready to learn, we are curious, we're expressing creativity, all of that, we're going to need to, make sure that there are other parts of this pyramid that we're meeting. So certainly physiological needs, that we have food, we have water, and we have a safe, a roof above our heads. And then of course, safety, feeling safe, not just physically in our environment, but emotionally as well. And then having a relationship with friends, teachers, all the school personnel. And then that self-esteem, self-respect, self-confidence, and understanding that you are respected by others. And a mindfulness practice can actually strengthen some of these, certainly self-esteem, self-confidence, better relationships with others, and just sort of a feeling of safety, understanding how you can respond in certain situations. Okay, so presence. Mandy talked a little bit about self-care, super important, and also something that a lot of us might think, I don't have time for self-care. We think, self-care means running 5 miles a day or getting massages or taking a spa weekend or something like that. But self-care doesn't necessarily have to include, these events that take a lot of time. we can absolutely insert self-care into our day. And I've found that the same way we insert mindfulness into our day, self-care kind of, it definitely goes along with that. So what I consider my mindfulness practice, a lot of that is self-care. So that there are ways you can certainly take time, if you have it, take time during the day to practice, you know, self-care in longer time periods, but it is something just to keep in mind kind of throughout the day. Presence is also about understanding your own triggers. So sometimes there's, you know, a student who kind of pushes our buttons, or, you know, maybe another coworker or something like that, or even just a time of day or something. The more we're practicing mindfulness, the more self-aware we are, then the more we understand our own triggers, we recognize them, and then we can have a plan. Okay, usually, you know, this kid, you know, really kind of gets me frustrated, so I'm gonna just kind of come at that with curiosity, like, what's going on? Why am I feeling like this? And then when it does happen, kind of having a plan in place. All right, maybe I need to take a few breaths before, you know, this class period, or you know, maybe just change my mindset. So definitely understanding your triggers. And then narrating and modeling feelings, super important, can be very powerful as well. So let's say you suddenly find yourself very frustrated in class, and you feel like, you know, I'm about to yell, I'm about to lose it. So maybe you just pause and you say to your class, hey, you know what, I'm really frustrated right now, and I know this might, you know, my heart started beating really fast, I'm clenching my jaw, I am definitely frustrated. So I need to go sit down. I think I'm going to take a few breaths. I'm going to take 3 breaths. Does anyone want to join me? You know, you can go ahead and breathe with me, and then, you know, we take our breaths, and then just, okay, I feel a little bit better. I'm thinking a little more clearly, and I'm a little calmer. So we can move on from there. Or if you do lose it, you know, just kind of saying, hey, you know what, I just yelled. I didn't want to do that, and I'm sorry. I got super frustrated. I didn't pause, and I just reacted. And now I need to, you know, now I think I'm going to take a few breaths, calm down, if anyone wants to join me. So letting the kids know, if whatever you feel is okay, and you know, and just kind of showing them how to get through difficult feelings can be super helpful. So your presence, again, will come down to you just knowing to pause. We'll talk about check-ins in a second. Pause, just kind of notice what's going on inside you, awareness of what's going on around you, maybe taking a breath, and then moving on. All right, so practices that you can do in your classroom. Instead of describing what a mindful minute is, I think I will show you. So a mindful minute can be done, that's something that you can do in your classroom. Maybe just start off with 1 mindful minute a day. Once you kind of get used to that, and your students, you know, get in that routine, you might add a few more mindful minutes. Maybe start off with 1 at the beginning of the day, right before academics begin. And then maybe a mindful minute before or after lunch, and then maybe 1 at the end of the day. So for a mindful minute, we give a choice of how you want to spend that minute. I'm going to ring this bowl in just a second, and then invite you all to either focus on the sounds that you hear, or maybe just focus on the feeling of your breath, or maybe just focus on the feeling of your feet touching the floor. And I will ring the bowl. I'll let you know when time is up. Choose what you'd like to focus on, and here we go. just check in with yourself right now. Just notice how you feel. And that's it. That's a mindful minute. You can use a singing bowl. You can use just some type of chime. There's also apps where you can download the sound of a chime. And then the important part is just to kind of ask them to notice how they feel. How did that mindful minute make you feel? And remember that any answer is acceptable. Sometimes a mindful minute is exactly what we need and we feel calm and relaxed. Sometimes a mindful minute can seem like an eternity. It's boring. You know, I'm noticing that I'm super fidgety. I don't want to sit still. It doesn't matter. The important part is that you're teaching awareness, just noticing how you feel in this moment. And same thing with check-ins. Those can be done specific times of the day, maybe every hour on the hour, or maybe you just notice, okay, this class needs a check-in. Like everyone's kind of a little dysregulated. So, you know, hey, let's all just pause, freeze, whatever you're doing, and check in with yourself. What thoughts are going through your head right now? How do you feel? Is there anything you need right now? And then maybe, you know, 1 or 2 breaths after that. And speaking of breaths, there's lots of different breathing techniques that you can do with your students. A good one is just squeeze. If people are feeling a little frustrated, imagine you have this squeeze ball in your hands and then breathe in and squeeze. And breathe out and let it go. And then for littler kids, there's, you know, fun breaths like a bunny breath. So there's lots of different resources, and if you go to Shanthi Project's website, you'll be able to find some resources. Movement is always super important, and I'm sure that a lot of you already incorporate movement into your day, and you know, knowing that this activates the vagus nerve, it can really calm our bodies, it can help us through, you know, stressful times. So even just, you know, everyone stand up, wiggle your hands, wiggle your arms, then end up wiggling your whole body. Just a stretch, a quick stretch, maybe a Simon Says type of game. I'll do that without saying a word, so they just kind of mirror the movements that I'm doing. And then even in transitions, instead of just, you know, having the kids line up, you could say, all right, when I count to 3, we're going to line up, but let's line up so quietly that if the principal was in here, she wouldn't even know that there were people in this room. 1, 2, 3, go. Or, you know, a silly one, like everyone line up, you know, walk like you're a penguin and line up. And then the last thing, which I think is one of the most important things, is gratitude. And I will change slides and lead you in a gratitude practice if you'd like to join in. Let's find those mindful bodies again, which means just sitting up tall, hands resting on our laps, both feet on the floor. And then if it feels okay for you, let your eyes close, or maybe just turn your gaze down. And then bring to mind 3 things that you're grateful for. It can be people, places, pets, things. Just 3 things that you're grateful for. And then imagine those 3 things in your mind. Imagine that they're surrounding you. All these things you're grateful for are right here with you. And then just notice how that feels. Notice how you're feeling right now. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And that's it. So simple. And gratitude, you can do a gratitude practice in the classroom that quickly, or you can, you know, it can become maybe something that you do every Friday or maybe certain times of day. You can also have each student have a gratitude journal where they, maybe we take 5 minutes, just write down things you're grateful for or draw things you're grateful for. And then the important part is to, at the end, you know, okay, let's look at our lists and then notice how do we feel right now? So, and this is something that, you know, is easily done on paper, in your head. I do it every night before I go to bed, just list things, 3 things from my day that I'm grateful for. As humans, we have that negativity bias, so it's part of our survival instinct is to notice the bad stuff. So with a gratitude practice, the studies have shown we can actually change our brains to notice the good stuff. Instead of just noticing the bad stuff, we can notice more good in our day. So I highly recommend. Yes.
I just want to give you a 5-minute
Okay,
warning.
thanks, Jesse. Okay, so starting your own practice, start with making a commitment, you know, whatever that might be. I think it's helpful to come up with why. Why do I want to start a mindfulness practice? And then you can revisit that from time to time. Start small. So we're not looking for, you know, like, okay, I'm going to meditate for an hour in the morning, an hour before bed, and, you know, just kind of start where you are. Maybe if you just want to create some routines, start with that mindful minute, then maybe add in another one. You can do that at home and kind of get used to it. Start adding check-ins. Maybe have, you know, kindness Mondays and gratitude Fridays when you're kind of talking about topics like this with your class. And then maybe set an intention. An intention is just kind of how you want to feel that day. So set an intention in the morning, start with the words I am, and then just add in, you know, how you would like to feel. Like, I am present. And then throughout the day, just kind of check in with that intention. And are my actions, my current actions, aligning with that intention? And if they're not, then it's kind of a reset for you. And then let go of expectations. So you're not trying to be the world's most mindful teacher. You're not expecting that your whole world is going to change. This is an ongoing practice. It's a journey. So just experiencing it, you know, mindfully in the present moment. There's lots of great apps out there. Insight Timer, Calm, Stop, Breathe, and Think. I know Calm offers a free subscription to teachers, so definitely something to look into. And I'll say it again, just to start a gratitude practice and see what changes. And real quick, just some mindful moments, maybe simple, easy things. And this is what I meant by it's kind of self-care and mindfulness. Before you get out of bed, you know, as soon as we wake up, usually our to-do list is you know, front and center, and we're flooded with thoughts. But maybe try to have a more mindful start to the day with just 3 breaths before you get out of bed. If you are driving and you're at a red light, just stop and use that time to notice, am I carrying tension anywhere in my jaw and my shoulders? And then just relax that area. Try some mindful eating, just a few mindful bites, really tasting the food, kind of experiencing it with all your senses. Maybe notice new things in your everyday environment. We're usually on, if you have a commute right now, we're usually on autopilot and, you know, go from A to B and we don't even remember the drive. So really just, you know, opening your eyes to what maybe you haven't seen before. And I love this one. This is so easy. An object that you come in contact with on a regular basis, so maybe a doorknob or a light switch, or even something you do like brushing your teeth. You probably do that twice a day. And just have that, anytime you touch that doorknob, pause for just a moment, take a breath, check in. How do I feel? Is there anything I need right now? Maybe 5 breaths before or after you brush your teeth. So you can link your mindful practice to something that you're already doing. and then you have a better chance of starting a routine. And yeah, and more gratitude. Okay, just some recommended reading. You guys have the slides, and I think that's it. Thank you so much.